Welcome to the HR Community Podcast. My name is Shane O'Neill, founder of Civitas Talent, the HR and HSC recruitment community. Each episode we will host HR leaders and discuss their journey and discover best practice HR solutions across the HR industry. Whether you're a CEO, HR executive, or operating across the wider HR space, this podcast is for you. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment and share your reviews. Enjoy the episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the HR Community Podcast. This morning, I am joined with Christine Polson. Christine is the former Chief People Officer for Greenlit Brands. Welcome, Christine.
Thanks so much for having me, Shane. I'm so excited to be here this morning.
Thank you. Over to you, Christine. Would love to hear a little bit more about, what you're currently working at the moment, and also a little bit more about the CPO role with Greenlit Brands.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, in terms of what I'm working on at the moment, I'm being really fortunate to have some time to do some personal learning and have taken some time to do some executive coaching training. So I'm an accredited coach and executive coach, and doing some of that work at the moment, which has been really wonderful to be stepping outside a little bit of my comfort zone from the sort of more day-to-day CPO role and really lean into really helping people in leadership roles working through their next journey.
Fantastic. Amazing. And then for anyone that doesn't know Greenlit Brands, can you tell us a little bit about what the business do?
So Greenlit Brands, I guess the best way to describe it is a house of retail brands. And I think that what's best about describing that is a house of retail brands that is vertically integrated with its own logistics and manufacturing framework that then can support all of those brands under one banner. And when I say house of retail brands, they're household goods brands and certainly names that most of your audience will know, which is Freedom Furniture, Fantastic, Snooze, etc. So lots of those brands that your audience would know and love.
That's all right. I know I'm familiar with quite a few of those brands, especially through the last couple of years with lockdown. Went through a full refurb of furniture and everything else, like I know a lot of people did.
I completely understand. It's great to have the ability to shop at those brands. It can also be a little expensive from time to time when you're a staff member and you see all those great products coming in every season.
Absolutely. Well, Christine, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey within HR? Because I know it's not your traditional sort of route. So I'll be really keen for you to tell our listeners a little bit about your initial background and then how you sort of stepped into the more senior HR executive side that you're in today.
Well, absolutely. And I think what I wanted to start with was a little bit, especially for the listeners, that it doesn't need to be a traditional sort of, start to your career to still end up and still have a really quite successful. And what I mean by that is, for me, for example, I grew up in a country town, and I've got 3 younger brothers. And so for me as a teenager and going into sort of early 20s, that meant, a lot of domestic requirements at home. So in those early years, uni wasn't an option for me. But that doesn't mean that you can't still have a wonderful career and progress. So from my early 20s on, I took that opportunity to step outside and move to the big smoke, I guess, for want of a better word, and start my career and in administration, really, and took that love of finance and accounting and spread that into more of a REM and BENS framework, which is what I started to work within. And I guess where that led to really was that opportunity. And when I started with Freedom Furniture as the head of payroll, remuneration and benefits, they were ASX listed at the time. And that role really was about not only about managing payroll and remuneration, but also implementing a time and attendance and HRIS system. So, things can certainly make some interesting turns throughout your career. And as it turns out, Freedom was acquired by Steinhoff International. Freedom was ASX listed, as I mentioned, and Steinhoff International is a global entity based in Germany and South Africa. So my career from that payroll perspective really took a turn to being a part of the integration team as Steinhoff acquired more retail businesses in Australia, those names that I mentioned earlier, Snooze, Greenlit, fantastic in those. So my role really became part of that integration team as to how do we embed those new organisations as part of their ongoing journey.
Amazing.
So that was a huge turn, and I think what your listeners may see in my journey is that interestingly there was a quite a sharp turn, which was in and around the requirement for our organisation locally to increase its capability from a risk perspective, and so I was asked to lead that aspect and increase the capability of risk knowledge and awareness in the organisation and build that reporting framework within the group. Something that I'd never done before, but certainly something that the leaders in the organisation trusted in me, that I would lean on the right people, find the right answers, and because I was able to really influence in terms of the senior leaders in the group, I really took a great turn in terms of being able to embed myself into some of those retail brands in terms of what's their strategic journey. And then how do we protect that strategic journey and the outcomes, the commercial outcomes that are required from a risk perspective. So at the time, it was an interesting one for me. I wasn't sure if I could really do it, to be perfectly honest. And I'm not sure how much I loved it at the time. But now looking back, it's really been a great addition to my career because it's really being able to demonstrate separately that I can have a commercial lens and bring from a HR perspective that commerciality in and around safeguarding EBIT, safety, and other, I guess, sales and supply chain metrics that are really important to, certainly some of these businesses that I've been a part of.
Fantastic. And you mentioned the term influence, which comes up a lot in my world, in recruiting HR roles. Tell us a little bit about that. So, when it comes to influencing, we can, read up on a lot of information. We can learn frameworks and methodologies and theories around the human mind. But in terms of building your strengths in influencing, which I know is one of your key strengths, how would you describe to our listeners how you go about that? What would you say would have been your journey in upskilling in influencing?
I think influencing is one of the, if you can do that well, it's one of your key, bullets, that you can certainly use in your career. And I think first, from an influencing perspective, listening is the key. In my opinion, because listening really articulates to your audience and to who you're working with that you understand what, really it's about them. And really people want to make sure that they're heard and that you're able to understand what their needs and requirements are, and that you're able to then create the journey together with that lens certainly on board. It doesn't mean that you do what they say. It just means that you understand so that when you're co-creating the journey, you've got their thoughts in mind. If that's a barrier, I think what you're doing is you're just having a two-way conversation and you're both not listening and you're both not really progressing and propelling forward in the way that you need. So for me, listening and really having that open dialogue and being transparent about where you need to go as well really is one of those key factors from an influencing perspective.
Fantastic. And we talked a little bit about your journey specifically. Let's talk a little bit about HR as a whole. So you would have seen so much transformation in HR and people and culture over the last couple of years, especially coming from the more remuneration, payroll space through risk and compliance through to, generalist HR. So you've kind of been involved in quite a few different realms, with your career. Tell us a little bit about, what you've seen to be some of the major transformations in HR, Christine.
Look, I have to say that certainly over the last few years, one of the biggest transformations I've seen is the wellbeing space. I'm sure that your audience would all agree. And I think that the capability of leaders to really be leaning in from a well-being, bring your whole self to work, the acceptance of family, and the acceptance of the fact that we have our work life and we have many other facets of our life is certainly something that I've seen in our leaders, and from a capability perspective and from a well-being perspective, that people don't need to hide their other lives anymore, and there's quite a lot of empathy. And I think that that's really helping people show up with their full self going forward.
Yeah, exactly right. And I agree with you there. And I think it also helps, again, sort of putting on my recruitment hat, candidates identify the right business for them. So it's not so much just about a job now, or just about, making a salary. It's about, do my values and visions align with this organization, and vice versa with the candidate. So I think it's helping people connect with the business a lot more, but it's also helping the businesses connect with their people and engage their people and ensure that they're job satisfied. Especially in a fairly high competitive market when it comes to talent. Talk to us a little bit about, again, sort of more specifically with your industry experience, Christine, what you've seen over the last sort of couple of years when it comes to talent, especially in that wider supply chain, because I know it's a high competitive market at the moment for talent, and there's a lot of pressure on supply chain at the moment to keep up with demand.
Look, there really is. And the supply chain is certainly one of those critical areas that I've been working on recently, Shane. And look, it is an absolute challenge. And we're seeing some other organisations that are large in Australia and New Zealand who are paying high salaries to attract their team members. And it's really hard for some of the organisations that have got such small margins to be able to meet that. So I think what we're seeing is, what else can some of these organisations offer to employees over and above, or in different to salary, that can attract some of these talents. So I think what we're seeing is organisations need to think differently about how that they can offer great benefits and inclusions for their people, because it's really hard to compete when some of these organisations are paying almost double the award rate. So it really is quite a challenge. But in saying that, it's great for the individuals. So we're certainly digging deeper and thinking about how we can attract and what we can offer. And it can be things like offering career progression. It can be things like offering further, deeper training. It can be things like offering rostered days off. Or there's certainly ways to really engage with individuals about what's going to propel them forward, as opposed to just a united, it's a salary, and let's just hope that everyone is on board with that. So it's getting more individual, which I quite like.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of more of, I guess, leaning back on HR again, do you see or predict or see any challenges for HR in the coming years? I mean, given the demand on people at the moment and employees, given the competitiveness to try and find talent, especially here in Australia, and I guess the increased demand and want for technology and products and services, especially here in Australia, what are the sort of main challenges you sort of forecast?
Look, I think for us, if we are from a HR perspective and organisations as a whole, if we're not thinking outside of the box and doing more than just a role and a salary and a great leader, I think we need to be thinking more broadly in terms of attracting that talent. You would see that too in the conversations. I'm sure your candidates are asking what else, what is the organisation doing from a sustainability perspective? And so people really want to understand is when they sign up, they want to feel good about that.
That's right.
And what does that mean? And what's an organisation doing about some of those CSR initiatives and those? And they're almost now hygiene factors. They're expected, I think. So if we're not doing those things as an organisation, I think that's certainly a focus that we should be turning our minds to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the next question I had for you, I know you're a big advocate for HR at the decision table, and you've got extensive experience with leadership coaching. For any of our aspiring leaders out there, or leaders in the HR field who are sort of ready for that next step. How would you, or what advice would you give them rather, to sort of take that next step and get their seat at the table, or to maybe push their organization to get them a bit more involved in that high level strategy?
Look, there's one key thing that I've learned along the way, and once I learned it the hard way because I didn't ask for what I wanted, and later realised that someone said, well, if you'd have told me that, absolutely, that would have been fine. So my advice is ask for what you want, because you're worth it. And if you're not asking, you're wondering if you're worth it. So my key advice is don't hesitate to knock on the door, share some thoughts around, and take ownership for what you're looking for. So I think you need to sometimes be specific. Leaders have got a lot on their minds. So if you've got something that you want, be specific, and certainly put your foot in the door and ask for what you want, because you'll be surprised as to what you might achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. And then again, sort of relating back to the aspiring leaders, any other advice, or what would be your other sort of top 2 tips for upcoming leaders, aspiring leaders, or even current leaders in the HR market?
Look, I think the other thing is thinking back to my risk days is certainly don't be afraid to take a different angle for a period of time in your career. And it's not necessarily about a pause or impacting your career. It's actually differentiating you from the market or from the standard process. So, and I'm noticing that's been quite topical for me. My advice would certainly be is to think about being more broad and perhaps taking some opportunities to embed yourself into some commerciality aspects to really broaden that career aspect. There is certainly no downside into taking a 12-month or taking a 6-month opportunity to really leverage that experience.
Absolutely. And I think now's the time. The world of work is continuing to change. It's not slowing down. There's a lot of opportunity out there, I think, for HR leaders to start to spread their net a bit further and see what else they can pull under their belt.
Yeah, that's right. And I think what else I'm noticing is that HR is really, while it's certainly on the radar, there's certainly an expectation for HR practitioners to be able to demonstrate commerciality for their initiatives and for their spend. So I think it's really important to really understand how you can be commercial and what commercial outcomes HR initiatives are driving and how it's linking through to strategy. So I think there's certainly an opportunity to take that time. And if you haven't got that thought in your mind, then certainly leverage that and maybe spend some time with this. I've spent a lot of time with CFOs, and there's no harm in doing that because it certainly helps connect that dialogue from a financial and strategic perspective.
Fantastic. Great advice, especially at the senior end of town at the moment. Commerciality, that business acumen, it's a major key essential criteria on a lot of the jobs I recruit at that level, and it's becoming more and more common in job descriptions. A couple of quick short questions for you, Christine, before we finish up today. Most influential person?
Oh, am I allowed to have 2?
You are.
Great. So 2 people who I've worked with for a long time. So these aren't celebrities. These are just people who I've worked with for a long time. Michael Gordon and Tim Schaafsma, absolute advocates of me and really helped shape my career.
Amazing. Thank you. Best lesson learned?
Oh, ask for what you want.
Ask for what you want.
Yeah.
That's great advice. Work from home, hybrid, work in the office, remote. What's your preference?
Oh, I do love working from home from time to time. I won't lie. I enjoy the tracksuits every now and again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I think we all do, especially on some of these winter days.
That's
but
right.
I'm a people person. So absolutely hybrid for me.
Absolutely. Especially when you talk about the commerciality piece, sitting with the CFO, being involved in the business, being involved in the meetings. I think it's critical. Who do you inspire?
Oh, who do I inspire? That's a great one. Look, I think I do inspire my team. I love to be super transparent when I can and share the big picture. So, I really, so if that's my team or a broader team, I do that via being transparent and very communicative.
Love it. What frustrates you?
I don't know if I should say this, but sometimes when egos get in the way, I do get frustrated. I'll be honest.
Yeah, leave your ego at the door, people.
Yeah.
How do you keep mentally focused?
I've got lots of energy, so it sort of comes naturally, but I'm definitely a morning person. So I try to pack as much as I can into the mornings, because by the afternoon, the chocolate comes out and, I've got to really dig deep. So, try and I think really understand where you get your most energy from and build on from there.
Trying to build on it. And then, leading on from that, when we talk about energy, any hobbies, sports, and anything extracurricular wise that you get involved in?
I love, and I've just found this out, but I really love Pilates. And I initially thought that it was because I love exercising laying down, which it is a benefit. There's no doubt about that. But look, there's certainly an aspect around that where I just truly feel like it's time for me. And you still get a great workout. All at the same time. So that's my newfound love. And it's one of those things, I think you got to find the thing that you jump out of bed for, and that's mine.
Yeah, 100%. It's so important to have something like that as well, just so you can kind of clear the head and step away from the day-to-day.
What's yours?
Boxing at the moment. Ooh. So I've been doing that for over a year now, actually. So it's my go-to. So maybe it's in line with the frustrations of recruitment, but no, it's good. I like it, and it's not just such a physical, high intensity sport. It's a lot about the mind as well, which I really like. So that's what I'll be planning to do later today. Last question for you, Christine, and I will let you go and get on with your morning. Any upcoming holidays, retreats, dream holidays that you've got on the bucket list, anything like that?
Well, I just had a month in Spain, so that was a big bucket list tick, which had been planned for a few years. So very fortunate to have done that. And to be perfectly honest, I came back thinking, all right, really should just put the holidays on the pause for now. But quickly now into thinking about new holidays, which at the moment I'm looking into the Philippines.
Amazing!
I don't know if you've been, but that's certainly something on the list at the moment that I'm looking into.
Amazing. I've not been to the Philippines yet, but we plan to go later this year, actually. So that'll be pretty exciting. I can give you some tips if I get there before you. Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for jumping on today. Some great insight there for all our listeners, Christine. Really appreciate you making the time, and enjoy the weekend. Pleasure. Thanks so much, Shane. Talk soon. Bye. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the HR Community Podcast. Remember to like and subscribe and share your views and comments below. This podcast was brought to you by Civitas Talent, the HR and HSC recruitment community. Whether you're a candidate looking for a new role or organization looking to secure brand new talent for your team, please get in touch with us today. Thank you.